What's going on, YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. So we had the first day of free agency yesterday, and now that we've had some time and things pass here in day one, now we move into day two. As we already have one signing in day two, we had plenty of millions of dollars spent in day one. We'll be taking a look at some of those in this video. If you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe down below, and let's take a look at the latest free agent signings. Alright, so before we get too far into this video, just want to give a quick plug to our Instagram and Twitter handles at goalline_hockey. Links will be in the description down below as well as throughout the video. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's get into the latest on the NHL signings. We're going to start things off with the Edmonton Oilers bringing back Tyler Ennis on a one-year, $1 million contract. This is a good move by both sides. Tyler Ennis, 31 years old. He's getting up there in age now. He was traded to the Oilers at the NHL trade deadline, and he seems to be working out quite well since he left the Ottawa Senators. This was a great deal by both sides. He's a cheap depth forward that the Edmonton Oilers, quite honestly, they need a lot more of, and he will add some scoring depth to this Oilers team. He's becoming a bit of a veteran now at 31 years old. A great move by both sides, and I think this is the Oilers continuing. Ken Holland has got to fix that forward issue in terms of the lack of depth. This is a good signing for both sides. Now we move on to the Anaheim Ducks, bringing in right shot defenseman, Stanley Cup champion here in 2020. Right shot defenseman Kevin Schattenkirk. Kevin Schattenkirk signs a 3-year, $11.7 million contract. That's $3.9 million per season for Kevin Schattenkirk. I like this deal for both sides. This is a good trade, a good move for Schattenkirk. He's going to have the opportunity to play veteran mode. He's 31 years old. For a very young, developing Anaheim Ducks team, I like this for both sides. This is a deal where really, he's getting his payday. He's getting another payday after a show-me year in Tampa Bay last season. He gets to win a Stanley Cup. Now he gets to make his bread off in Orange County, California, which, if I'm going to be honest, sounds pretty good on the back end of my NHL career. So, good for Kevin Schattenkirk. Despite all the issues he had with the New York Rangers, he seems to have finally turned his game around, and Bob Murray gives him a chance with this 3-year contract. So now we move on to Vinnie Hinostroza going to the Florida Panthers on a 1-year, $1 million contract. I like this for both sides. Vinnie Hinostroza struggled with the Arizona Coyotes at points last season. He's only 26 years old. He has the potential to be a center. He could play wing. This is a good spot for him. He could be a little bit of a Swiss Army knife in that Florida Panthers offense. They're already making a couple of changes, which we've seen, bringing in a guy like Carter Verhaeghe. Now they bring in Vinnie Hinostroza, Ryan Lomberg. So just a couple of different names for the Florida Panthers. I like this move by the new management there in Florida. Good move by both sides. So now we get into one of the more blockbuster moves of the day, as we see the big man, goaltender Jacob Markstrom, go to the Calgary Flames as he has signed a 6-year, $36 million contract with the Calgary Flames. He's making $6 million per season. This is an interesting move by the Calgary Flames, as Brad Treliving has never had a real, legit starting goaltender in Calgary. And I think this is his move in addressing that. He's done with all this, going on. So this was a major move. The only issue is he's 30 years old. So when this contract is over, he will be 36 years old at the end of this contract, making $6 million per season. I don't know how this is going to work long term. I think those first 3 or 4 years will be solid on this contract. The back end of that deal, the last 2 to 3 years, could be an issue for the Calgary Flames. He's already been known to have a little bit of an injury issue, which he had at the conclusion of last season here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So it is an interesting move, a bit of a risk here by Brad Treliving, but the Calgary Flames have gone all in with Jacob Markstrom. So now we move on up to an interesting signing in that the New York Rangers pick up another goaltender. Now, this is their third goaltending option, unless they plan on trading Georgiev, which I still think would be stupid. I think they'd rather keep Georgiev. But if they are having issues with signing guys like Tony DeAngelo and possibly bringing back a Ryan Strome. Maybe they do look at this as a possibility. They bring in a third goaltender in Keith Kinkade. Keith Kinkade signs a 2-year, $1.65 million contract. I like this deal. He's making a little over $800,000 per season. It's a good deal for him. And for the New York Rangers, they get some more goaltending depth, more than likely for the American Hockey League at this point. But if they have to trade Alex Georgiev, they aren't able to get things done, then we will see him become the backup behind Shesterkin moving forward. Then we look up at Washington as the Washington Capitals get an interesting defenseman. They bring in Justin Schultz, the right shot defenseman, on a 2-year, $8 million contract. This is a fair deal for Justin Schultz, making $4 million per season. He's 30 years old. He's a right shot defenseman, and once again, we're seeing the Washington Capitals pry away those former Pittsburgh defensemen, bringing them down to Washington. We saw this with Brooks Orpik a couple of years ago. And we're seeing it again here with Justin Schultz. He has a lot of offensive potential as a defenseman, kind of like another John Carlson. This is kind of the replacement to Nate Schmidt, which they haven't had since Schmidt went to the Vegas Golden Knights in the expansion draft. I like this deal and a good move by the Washington Capitals. So now we move up to the New York Rangers, making another move here as they bring in 33-year-old left shot defenseman Jack Johnson on a 1-year, $1.15 million contract. I like this deal for both sides. Jack Johnson gets back in the fold in the NHL. He's a good depth defenseman on a much cheaper deal. I like this deal, and this is something that, Jack Johnson, we know he struggled with the Pittsburgh Penguins. That over $3 million cap hit was way too much for him, so the Penguins bought him out. But I like what the Rangers are doing here, bringing in a guy that has some experience around the NHL, will help develop some of those younger defensemen on the New York Rangers roster. This is a good, stepping stone piece as the Rangers continue their rebuild. They wait for guys like Robertson, Lundqvist to develop and get ready for the NHL. Jack Johnson is kind of a placeholder until then. So now we move on to Toby Reader, as Toby Reader signs an interesting deal. He signs with the Buffalo Sabres on a 1-year, $700,000 contract. He has definitely fallen out of the graces, out of a lot of eyes around the NHL. He has not developed into that top 6 forward that he was expected to be when he was with the Arizona Coyotes. He struggled last season at points with the Calgary Flames. There's a good opportunity in Buffalo on a cheap contract for the Sabres, a guy that could probably play in the NHL next season at certain points with injuries. Definitely not where he would like to be going in this situation is Toby Reader, but you know what? He's still 27 years old. He could play. He's a versatile player. He could play left shot, right shot. So good opportunity here for him to start over in Buffalo. All right, so now we move on to the Toronto Maple Leafs making their big move as they brought in Wayne Simmons up front, and they bring in the big top 4 defenseman, TJ Brodie, on a 4-year, $20 million contract. He'll be making $5 million per season. I like this deal for both sides. TJ Brodie adds that defense that the Leafs desperately need on the right side. And this is just a good move overall, and it's going to continue to add depth to that group. He adds a little bit of grit and sandpaper, which we know the Leafs have lacked for the past couple of seasons. So adding Simmons and TJ Brodie, I like this by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, they didn't get Alex Pietrangelo. No, they didn't get Torey Krug. They didn't get any of those guys. But you know what? They were able to add a solid defensive player on a cheaper deal than you would have for Pietrangelo or Krug. That would have been anywhere between $8 to $10 million. I think this is a better, safer bet by General Manager Kyle Dubas. You don't always have to get the biggest fish in the market. It doesn't always lead to the most success. So I like this move by the Toronto Maple Leafs. All right, so now we have another defenseman get taken off as we see Torey Krug, formerly of the Boston Bruins, heading to the team he played in the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs as he plays against his Bruins he'll be playing against the Bruins this year. He has signed a big contract with the St. Louis Blues. 7 years, $45.5 million over that 7 years. This is a big contract for Torey Krug. It's at a cap hit of $6.5 million per season for the next 7 years. Torey Krug will be getting the most out of pretty much anybody on this list, as maybe Alex Pietrangelo will get more. But the fact that Alex Pietrangelo is one of the last guys remaining here is kind of interesting. We would have thought he would have been one of the first dominoes to fall. That has not been the case. But this is a good signing here for Torey Krug. I think this is a move that It's unconfirmed at this point, but we know pretty certainly that this is going to be the situation. So I like this for Torey Krug, who, he's going to go to another Stanley Cup contender. He takes a big discount at $6.5 million per season. But you know what? He's going to play on a Stanley Cup contender in St. Louis. That's a really solid defense, a great coaching staff, a great structure. This is a great signing by the St. Louis Blues. And for Torey Krug, he gets a nice payday and over a long period of time, getting that 7 years on his deal. So now we move on to Chris Tanev, as a lot of former Vancouver Canucks are heading east to Alberta, as once again we see Jacob Markstrom go to Calgary. And now we see Chris Tanev go to the Calgary Flames. The right shot defenseman, 30 years old, signs a 4-year, $18 million contract. A good signing for both sides, a $4.5 million cap hit per season. I like this deal for Chris Tanev. He gets a decent contract. He gets 4 years on the deal as well, unlike a lot of these guys who it seems like a lot of 1 and 2 year contracts. He gets that 4 years, and at 30 years old, he'll have this till he's 34 years old. This is a good signing for both sides. Not too long of a contract, not too short either, where Tanev maybe missed an opportunity to make some money. I think till he's 34 years old, after this contract, he could retire, and he will definitely, I think we're seeing this a lot. We see this with Lundqvist yesterday. We see Justin Schultz going down the road from Pittsburgh to Washington. A lot of these guys have their families established in that city already. So if they have to play hockey, a couple hours away, and from Vancouver to Calgary, we're seeing guys do that a lot more. So it hurts because that means they're going to be more than likely going to a division rival or a rival in general. But that's the way hockey works, right? It's kind of cutthroat. So that's the situation there. Good signing by the Calgary Flames, and Brad Treliving, one of the winners so far of the NHL free agency period so far. So now we look at the New Jersey Devils, as they bought out Corey Schneider the other day in the final couple years of his contract, and now they decide to sign former Stanley Cup champion goaltender of the Chicago Blackhawks. He's 35 years old. He signs a 2-year, $7.8 million contract. Corey Crawford, a good signing by the New Jersey Devils. I don't know if I like the 3.9 per season on Crawford, and he's 35 years old, but this is more for Crawford as just another opportunity to play. And we heard the other day that Stan Bowman and Crawford had a very emotional talk over the phone the other day, and pretty much the ending of the relationship between the Blackhawks and Corey Crawford after all that they have been through. He now moves on to the New Jersey Devils. He will be the mentor, the backup to the young Mackenzie Blackwood, who is hopefully the starting goaltender, the goalie of the future in New Jersey. I like this signing. $3.9 million, I don't like that part too much. But besides that, the player itself, the personnel, and the fit, it does work for Corey Crawford in New Jersey. All right, so now we have one of the first signings of today here in day 2, as we have the the Colorado Avalanche bringing in Andre Burakovsky, a 2-year, $9.8 million contract. Andre Burakovsky is getting paid. He's getting $4.9 million per season. I like this signing for both sides. It's a little bit much, if I'm going to be honest, making 4.9, but you know what? He had a really good season last year with the Colorado Avalanche. That whole team had a really solid year offensively, so it makes sense that Burakovsky gets his money. Does this mean that Colorado is not going to sign Taylor Hall? They do have $17 million in cap space, so they absolutely could still make that work, but maybe they don't feel that's as necessary now that they have Andre Burakovsky. So that's it for the bigger. We saw a couple of other little things here and there, but I'm not going to talk about every single signing. Make sure to check out Cap Friendly. That's where I got all my information from. They are a great source for the latest contract news. But it's a pretty solid day. 80 signings, 136 contract years, over $118 million spent, and $302 million worth of total contract dollars. A big day 1 in free agency here in 2020. And day 2, it's starting off the same. So comment down below. What do you think of the signings so far? What do you think of your team? There's a couple teams out there that have been pretty quiet so far here. I'm talking about teams like the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Carolina Hurricanes, The New York Islanders are another team. The Arizona Coyotes. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think of some of these teams that have been a little bit quiet? And what do you think of the teams that have been making moves? You know, Torey Krug going to St. Louis, Tanev and Markstrom going down the road to Calgary. Let me know your opinions on those in the comment section down below. And if you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey and want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe down below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.